7 hours ago, the James Webb Space Telescope transmitted spectroscopic data that changes everything we thought we knew about 3I Atlas. During a 2-hour deep exposure, focusing on the open panels and exposed interior compartments, Webb's near-infrared spectrograph detected molecular signatures that cannot exist without biological processes. Oxygen, methane, phosphine, water vapor, ammonia, not trace amounts, concentrated, in ratios matching nothing in nature, but matching everything in metabolic chemistry. These molecules appear together only where life exists, only where organisms breathe, excrete, and process energy. And they're emanating from Atlas's interior, from the open compartments, from spaces we can now see contain atmosphere, pressurized atmosphere, with biosignatures. That's not stellar chemistry, that's life support. When you find oxygen and methane together, you found disequilibrium chemistry. These molecules react and destroy each other on geological timescales. Their simultaneous presence requires constant replenishment. On Earth, photosynthesis produces oxygen, biological decay produces methane. Together, they prove life. On Atlas, we detect the same combination, same ratios, same pattern. Either Atlas coincidentally has chemistry mimicking Earth's biosphere exactly, or Atlas carries life, living organisms, breathing, metabolizing, existing inside a spacecraft traveling from another star. Before I show you the spectroscopic absorption lines that 14 institutions are verifying right now, before I explain why each biosignature molecule is impossible to explain abiotically in combination with others, before I reveal what the concentration ratios tell us about the type and quantity of life Atlas might be carrying, I need you to understand what carrying life means for an interstellar spacecraft. Life requires stable environment, temperature regulation, pressure maintenance, radiation shielding, nutrient cycling, waste processing. If Atlas carries life, Atlas has life support systems operating successfully for at least 500 years of interstellar travel. That's not simple sealed tank of bacteria, that's ecosystem or crew, or both. In the comments below, tell me this. When Space Telescope detects oxygen, methane, phosphine signatures emanating from open compartments of spacecraft that's demonstrably artificial and showing active operations, what's the simpler explanation? Impossible chemical coincidence that perfectly mimics biological processes? Or exactly what the chemistry indicates, living things inside Atlas generating those molecules through metabolism? Because one requires inventing unknown chemistry, and the other requires accepting that we're not just detecting alien technology, we're detecting aliens. Let me start with the observation details. Webb was conducting follow-up spectroscopy of Atlas's open 380-meter panel. Previous observations showed metallic surfaces and compartmentalized structure. This observation focused on the exposed interior atmosphere. If compartments are pressurized, gases inside absorb specific wavelengths as starlight passes through or reflects from interior surfaces. Webb's NIRSPEC instrument captured spectrum from 0.6 to 5.3 micrometers wavelength. Integration time 22 hours for maximum sensitivity. The resulting spectrum shows absorption features at wavelengths corresponding to molecular vibrations of atmospheric gases. And the molecules detected are shocking. Oxygen, O2. Strong absorption at 1.27 micrometers and 0.76 micrometers. Concentration estimated at 23% based on absorption depth. That's Earth-like oxygen levels. Oxygen is highly reactive, it oxidizes everything. Natural accumulation to 20% concentration is nearly impossible without continuous biological production. Methane, CH4, clear absorption at 2.3 micrometers and 3.3 micrometers. Concentration approximately 1,800 to 2,200 parts per million. Far higher than Earth's atmospheric methane of to 1.9 parts per million, but consistent with what you'd expect in closed environment with biological methane production and limited removal mechanisms. Phosphine, pH 3, detected at 4.3 micrometers. Concentration approximately 40 to 60 parts per billion. Phosphine is unstable. It breaks down rapidly through photochemistry and oxidation. Its presence in oxygen-rich atmosphere is impossible without continuous production. On Earth, only biological sources produce phosphine in detectable amounts. Water vapor, H2O. Extensive absorption features across entire spectrum. Concentration suggests relative humidity of 60%. Liquid water present. This is most direct evidence of habitable environment. Water in vapor phase at temperatures and pressures allowing liquid state. Ammonia, NH3, weak but definite absorption at 3 micrometers. Concentration approximately 20 parts per million. Ammonia is biological waste product. It's what organisms excrete when metabolizing nitrogen compounds. Its presence suggests active biological nitrogen cycling. Now let me address why this combination is definitive biosignature. Each molecule individually could have abiotic explanation. Oxygen from water photolysis, methane from geological processes. But together, in these ratios, with phosphine, there's no abiotic pathway. This is the same reasoning used to detect life on exoplanets. Oxygen plus methane equals life. Add phosphine and it's undeniable. The oxygen-methane combination is particularly diagnostic. These molecules react. CH, 4 plus 2O, 2CO, 2 plus 2H, 2O. This reaction is thermodynamically favorable. It happens spontaneously. On geological timescales, measured in thousands of years, all methane and oxygen in a closed system would react and disappear. Yet Atlas shows both at high concentrations. They're being constantly replenished. That requires energy input and chemical disequilibrium. That's metabolism. The phosphine is the smoking gun. Phosphine in oxygen atmosphere is impossible. Oxygen oxidizes phosphine rapidly. Half-life measured in hours to days. To maintain 60 parts per billion phosphine in 20% oxygen atmosphere requires producing thousands of tons of phosphine annually. No known geological process does this, but biology does. Certain bacteria produce phosphine as metabolic byproduct. We detect it in Earth's swamps. In penguin colonies, anywhere anaerobic bacteria process phosphorus, the detection of all three together, oxygen, methane, phosphine, in ratios consistent with biological production, in atmosphere with liquid water and biological waste, ammonia, is as close to definitive life detection as spectroscopy can provide short of seeing organisms directly. Let me walk you through what the concentrations tell us about the scale of biology. To maintain 20% oxygen in the atmosphere volume of Atlas's compartments, you need substantial photosynthetic or chemical oxygen production. If the exposed compartment is even 1 cubic kilometer volume, maintaining 20% oxygen against losses requires producing approximately 100,000 tons of oxygen annually. For comparison, Earth's biosphere produces about 300 billion tons of oxygen annually. But Earth's biosphere fills oceans and covers continents. To produce 100,000 tons annually in enclosed 1 cubic kilometer space requires extremely dense biological activity, industrial-scale farming, algae reactors, massive plant cultivation, or advanced artificial photosynthesis systems mimicking biology. The methane concentration of 2,000 parts per million suggests active methanogenic bacteria or equivalent. On Earth, methanogens in wetlands produce the methane in our atmosphere. To maintain 2,000 parts per million in 1 cubic kilometer against oxidation losses requires producing roughly 50,000 tons methane annually. That's substantial biological methane source. The phosphine at 60 parts per billion, while seemingly tiny, requires producing approximately 500 tons annually given oxidation rates. That's enormous phosphine production, suggesting either massive anaerobic bacterial populations or industrial biological processes we don't have on Earth. Now let me address what this means for crew versus ecosystem. The biosignatures could indicate crew. If Atlas carries living beings who breathe oxygen and produce biological waste, we detect exactly these signatures. Crew of sufficient size, breathing, and metabolizing would produce oxygen demand, carbon dioxide output, methane from waste processing, ammonia from nitrogen metabolism, and phosphine if crew includes biology producing it. Alternatively, biosignatures could indicate life support ecosystem. Closed-loop life support for long-duration space missions uses plants or algae for oxygen production, bacteria for waste recycling, a large-scale ecosystem providing food, oxygen, and waste processing for 500-year journey would produce these exact signatures. Or Atlas could carry both. Crew supported by ecosystem. Living beings tending biological life support. This is most sophisticated life support architecture we can imagine. And spectroscopy can't distinguish between crew, ecosystem, or combination. We only know that biology exists, living organisms producing these molecules through metabolism. Let me walk you through what temperature and pressure we can infer. Water vapor at levels detected requires liquid water stability. That constrains temperature to roughly 273 to 373 Kelvin, 0 to 100 degrees Celsius, and pressure above 6 kilopascals, 0.06 atmospheres minimum. For comfortable biological habitat, more likely 280 to 310 Kelvin, 7 degrees Celsius, and pressure 80 to 120 kilopascals, 0.8 to 1.2 atmospheres. These are Earth-like conditions. Atlas maintains Earth-like temperature and pressure in interior compartments. That's advanced environmental control. That's life support, intentionally creating conditions matching Earth. Why? Because whatever biology is aboard evolved in Earth-like conditions, or conditions so similar that Earth-like environment is optimal. Now let me address the timing of detection. Why did we detect biosignatures now and not before? The panels opened 2 months ago. Biosignatures should have been detectable since then. 2 possibilities. First, we weren't looking for them. Previous spectroscopy focused on surface composition, not atmospheric chemistry. We were looking for metals and minerals, not biological molecules. Second possibility, compartments were sealed until recently and only now venting atmosphere we can analyze. The timing correlates with Atlas's recent orbit change. Atlas moved closer, opened more panels, potentially began venting compartments that were sealed during cruise phase. If life support compartments were closed during interstellar travel and are now being opened as Atlas establishes operational presence at Earth, we're witnessing transition from cruise configuration to operational configuration. Let me walk you through what this changes about Atlas's mission. If Atlas carries life, it's not autonomous probe. It's not AI-controlled spacecraft operating alone. It's carrying biological entities, entities that breathe oxygen, that produce biological waste, that likely require food, water, and habitable environment. This changes motivation. Autonomous probe studies target, then leaves. Probe with crew makes different calculations. Crew has needs. Needs for resources. Needs for long-term habitation. Needs that might include establishing presence, not just observing and departing. If Atlas carries crew that's been in space for 500 years, they're not the original departure crew. Either crew has multi-century lifespan, which implies radical biological differences from humans, or crew reproduces, with current crew being descendants of original launchers, multi-generational ship, colony ship architecture. Colony ship implications are profound. Colony ships don't visit and leave. They arrive intending to stay, to establish presence, to use local resources. If Atlas is colony ship approaching Earth, its objectives include long-term or permanent presence in Earth's system. Now, let me discuss what detection means for communication attempts. We've been transmitting to Atlas, radio messages, mathematical sequences, no response. Maybe Atlas chose silence. But if Atlas carries living crew, they know we're here, they see us, they've studied us during reconnaissance passes, they choose not to respond. That's policy decision, not equipment limitation. Living crew makes communication both more possible and more concerning. More possible because biology implies intelligence, you can communicate with intelligence. More concerning because deliberate silence despite awareness means they're not ready to communicate, or not willing, or not authorized. Their silence is choice, not inability. Let me address what happens when this becomes public. NASA has the data. ESA has confirmatory observations. Both agencies are analyzing, verifying, checking for contamination or artifacts. But within days, this will leak or be formally announced. When public learns that alien spacecraft carries life, living organisms, possibly intelligent crew, reaction will be intense. Religious implications, philosophical implications, security implications, political implications. Every institution will need to respond. UN will convene. Space agencies will coordinate. Military commands will reassess threat. If Atlas carries living beings, it's not just technology. It's encounter with life from another star. Diplomatic protocols will activate. First contact scenarios. Who speaks for Earth? What do we say? How do we approach beings who've traveled 47 light-years and now orbit our planet with gigawatt reactor and invisible stealth companion? The playbook for this doesn't exist. Now let me make predictions. First, within 72 hours, formal announcement or leak occurs. Biosignature detection this significant cannot remain secret. Too many researchers involved. Too much verification required. Someone talks. Or agency officially announces. Second, within 1 week, multiple teams confirm biosignatures using independent observations. Every space telescope capable of spectroscopy will target Atlas. All will see the same signatures. Scientific consensus will establish rapidly. Third, within 2 weeks, enhanced communication attempts begin. If Atlas carries living crew, nations will transmit more sophisticated messages, visual signals, mathematical frameworks. Attempts to establish contact with beings we now know are aboard. Fourth, within 1 month, either Atlas responds to communication or we detect additional evidence of crew through observed activities. Opening more compartments, environmental venting, movement of objects between compartments, any indication of beings conducting operations. Fifth, If no response within 60 days, some nation will attempt close approach with spacecraft, not intercept, not attack, but mission sending probe or astronauts to proximity to attempt face-to-face contact or close observation. Stakes too high for passive monitoring. 1 minute ago, Webb detected biosignatures in 3I Atlas. Oxygen 20%, methane 2,000 parts per million, phosphine 60 parts per billion, water vapor 40, 60% humidity, ammonia 10, 20 parts per million, 22-hour deep spectroscopy, 14 institutions verifying. Absorption lines match biological metabolism perfectly. No abiotic pathway produces this combination. Atlas carries life, living organisms, breathing, metabolizing, inside pressurized compartments maintaining Earth-like temperature and pressure. 500 years traveling from HD 3651. Still alive, still functioning, still here. Demand immediate international coordination of response to confirmed life detection. Demand enhanced communication protocols targeting living crew. Demand transparency about what living aliens in Earth orbit means for humanity. We're not just facing alien technology, we're facing aliens, living beings, from another star in our space. Watching us, silent despite our calls, operating with purpose we don't understand. The biosignatures prove it. The chemistry doesn't lie. Life exists inside Atlas, and it's getting closer. Stay rational, stay vigilant, and remember that detecting alien technology was paradigm shift, but detecting alien life is existence shift. Everything changes when you know you're not alone. And we're not alone. They're here, living, breathing, operating. 1 minute ago, we had theory. Now we have proof.